Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. Happy to have you here. It's a great day to be alive, and you're going to love my guest today. If you're here for the first time, welcome. This is where you come when you want to finally stop dieting and lose weight without the crazy world of dieting and trying to beat yourself up with exercise and, all the different kinds of crazy machinations that we do when we are struggling with emotional eating. And, what I talk about here, just so you know, really has little to do with food and weight, because that's not your problem if you've been a chronic dieter. Your problem goes much deeper. And so that's what we talk about here on the Heal Your Hunger Show, the deeper causes and conditions of why we got out of control with food in the first place. If you haven't joined me in the Secret Sauce group, please do that. Go to Facebook and type in Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. And we would love to have you in there and really continue the conversation. And what I'm really excited about today is my guest, who is here to talk about really standing in your power, getting out of that terrible isolation and fear of being seen, fear of being heard, right? Because communication is so important for emotional eaters. We don't do it enough. And it's really time to step out and have a voice, share our voice, and be confident with our voice. So I want to introduce you to Angela. And before I rave about her, I just want to say, hi, Angela.
Hi.
Yeah, great to have you. Angela Chee is a media, on-camera, and communication coach. She's a keynote speaker and founder of You Amplified. And I've known Angela for a lot of years, so it's really exciting to have her here. She's a former TV news anchor and reporter. She's worked on top TV markets from KCBS and KCAL TV, which is here in Los Angeles, CNBC, and Fox and San Diego, and she's hosted shows for networks like E! Entertainment and HGTV. I mean, she's been all over, really. It's so impressive. But she's now on a mission to help leaders be amplified, be who they really are, to own their power and their voice, master their message, and step into the spotlight through speaking, video, and media. So even though you might not be looking for speaking or media and that kind of thing in your work, trust me, what she has to share is going to be very pertinent. And if you are, obviously all the better, because you're going to learn from her really how to get out there, and you might even want to work with her personally. So Angela, welcome. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Trisha. It's so nice to see you. I loved seeing you in person, I think a few months ago. But yeah, we first met, has it been like 12 years ago?
It's crazy.
As speakers,
crazy.
When we were starting off on our keynote speaking journey.
That was so amazing. That was a long time ago. So yeah, I've been on this journey for a long time, wanting to speak and be heard. And, now I have a podcast, so that's good.
I love it.
But yeah, I love speaking and, obviously getting the word out about emotional eating. And I just love how you've transitioned into this amazing work of You Amplified. So can you talk a little bit about how, because I knew you when you were just starting this transition, right? You didn't have You Amplified at the time.
No, I was still in the news actually when I met you. I was a reporter in Los Angeles at KCBS, and I was thinking about, what do I really stand for and what do I want to go out there in the world and do? And so this keynote through NSA, National Speakers Association, was like, what is my message? It was the first time I really thought about, what do I stand for and what do I want to put out into the world? And that actually didn't come to fruition until after I had children and started building this brand and all that and left the news completely. But I was dabbling in the middle of, like, the news is different. It's you're telling other people's stories, which I loved. But being an entrepreneur or knowing who you are and what you stand for are totally different things. So that's really what You Amplified is. Even though I do help leaders own their voice and their power for speaking, video, and media, it's really about being clear, confident, and connected in all parts of your life, right? Because if you show up on stage, how you show up in person, that's really the core.
Yeah, and you're not going to just walk on stage unless you've done a lot of inner work and you've tapped into that inner source of power, right?
Yeah, and it's almost like, I always say, if people don't work with me, you can figure it out. But wouldn't it feel more at ease to know who you are, what you stand for, and go out there and own it? Most people just figure it out. That's how I did it. You kind of go through the process and you put yourself out there, and then you learn from that experience. But there is something to be said about feeling at ease doing it versus forcing yourself to do it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's really funny because I love speaking in public. Like I don't have any problem doing my podcast and I enjoy speaking, but I do get nervous still, like I mean, I used to act as a kid, I was in these acting groups and that kind of thing. And so it's always been fun for me. Some people are terrified of the stage. I'm not. But I do get nervous still, where I spoke recently at a conference and I could hear my voice shaking. I'm like, what? Like, what's up with that?
Can I tell you a secret? I mean,
Yeah.
I still do too, but I reframe it. And that's what a lot of people who haven't done this before or anything say, okay, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, I'm fearful. And because they get that feeling. But I think most people get that feeling, and it's how you frame that feeling, right? Because you are comfortable. And so I like to think about it. And I sometimes, depending on the situation or what day it is, I get that intensity more than others. So it doesn't mean that just because you put yourself out there, or even if you're a media and communication coach, that it completely goes away. Now, I know some people who are just totally comfortable, but I don't say that I'm uncomfortable. It's that feeling, but I see it as an energy getting you ready to do something big. So it's not that you're nervous. It's that I have a job to do here and I have something to say, and people are putting a lot of energy towards you. So wouldn't you need that same energy back? So I call it revving up your engine. It's your turning on.
Oh, I like that.
Right? If you weren't turning on, you'd be like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
And so that reframe can be very powerful. So I want people out there who maybe aren't used to being in the spotlight. Nervousness or that intensity is just because you're not used to something. And even if you are used to it sometimes, it's really about how you're feeling that day. But if you flip it as to something powerful and that you need and that is your ally, it can really change the situation.
I love that, naming it as energy, and it's just like you're channeling it. You're just going to
turning on.
Yeah, turning it on. I love that. Okay. So one of the things I love what you said is that, you had to really find what your calling was. Which I think is a big problem for a lot of people, and a lot of reasons why we oftentimes overeat actually is when we don't know our purpose, when we're not tapped in with who we really are. And so we're maybe doing a job that's not right for us, or we're doing civic activities that don't really align with who we are and what we want to do in the world. So talk to me about that experience of really finding who you really are and what you want to do in this world.
Yeah, and I want to give people permission that it's an evolution. People always talk about find your purpose, find your purpose. It puts a lot of pressure on people that, I found my purpose, but it's evolved through the years and it may change again, right? It's not like you're stuck. This is what I'm meant to do forever. And people feel bad when other people have their purpose and you may not yet. And I see it as an awareness of an evolution of self-awareness and being okay if your purpose shifts a little bit. But ultimately, we know there's always something that's drawing us forth. And so for me, my purpose when I was in my 20s was to make it back to Los Angeles and be a TV news anchor. Like, I didn't care about anything else. When I was little, I said I wanted to be like Connie Chung, and I worked my butt off and I went to small markets, and that was my purpose. But then I hadn't really grown into myself. I hadn't really understood and matured into it's not about you, but you're very career driven when you're younger. And then it starts to go what am I really about? And so once I had made it, right, all the hard work was dedicated, and that wasn't a purpose, that was a goal, right? Once I had gotten my big goal, it was more about now really what do I want to stand for, when I show up in the room. And it was a slower process, and not until I had children. So my kids are 10 and 9 right now. But after I had kids and I left the news, I was like, what am I leaving behind? What do I really want to stand for? And so it is it's a process of peeling back all the layers and getting to the core. And I realized, I'll just tell you a story of how I found my purpose really. And it's always been the same, but sometimes it's hidden. So I grew up as a Chinese immigrant. My parents immigrated in the 70s and to Washington, D.C., and then moved to Los Angeles. And I felt like I always was their advocate, right? They taught me to play it small, to play it safe, to not rock the boat. And that's a very Asian cultural thing, but I think that happens for a lot of women. It doesn't really matter if you're Chinese or you're an immigrant. And I listened to that, but yet my personality was different. So I was shy growing up, but I always felt like at odds with that. And I think still now, even though I help people own their power and their voice, the subconscious and the unconscious, I'm still at odds with that. And so it's something that I believe in. So my parents gave up a lot. They gave up their voice in order to have a better life for me. And so my purpose really stemmed from, I think, wanting to be on TV and be like Connie Chung, was seeing that that was an avenue to have a voice. When I hadn't seen anyone around me have that, right? When I saw an Asian woman, it's like, oh my gosh. And subconsciously, as a young child, it was just more like permission to do something big. And I didn't really know what that looked like later on, but I think, so that's how I evolved into my purpose, was seeing that maybe that's what drove me to want to be on television. But in the end, I don't really care about being on television or being popular or being famous. It was about a way to share my voice, because I felt like my parents had gave up theirs. And it's a gift, right? It's like, I know someone in your life probably gave up opportunities so that you could have yours. And we live in a time where, you may not have to be on stage or do videos like a lot of my clients, but you have the freedom to stand up for who you are, and you should use that, because a lot of people don't, right? My parents didn't always have a choice. They had to do what they had to do. And I have all the freedom in the world, and you may too, depending on your situation. And so we should use that power. So my purpose has always been the same. I just didn't discover it and actually name it until I think after I had children and really thought about, what do I want to put out into the world?
It's such a beautiful message, Angela. And I think it's true that so many people, I think they have a self-imposed lack of permission. Like they somehow think they're trapped, or somehow think because maybe their spouse is overpowering, or their spouse might criticize them, or whatever. They have friends they think might criticize them. They stay small, they stay playing small. But because we do live in a free country, thank God. And most people listening will be in some country that's free. We do have the power to speak up. It's just fear that's holding us back.
And I don't want to put light upon situations where people may be dealing with, where maybe they are a bit controlled, or in situations where they don't feel like they can get out of it. So I don't want to make light of that. But in terms of your everyday day-to-day, and we're talking about communication, there are ways where you can honor who you are, what you stand for, and speak up for yourself. And I'll have to say, in the last 2 years, I've even stepped it up like a lot about what that call has gone out to women. Something's shifted in the last year and a half. I've been teaching this work and knowing what I stand for like 10 years. But the last 2 years, I'm like, ooh, where have I not been owning what I want to say? Where have I not been setting up boundaries? And my husband is fabulous. He's corporate executive. He travels all the time. He doesn't allow me, but he doesn't control me. But yet there's certain things that happen in relationships where we fall into our old patterns based on our culture. So even in my own relationship, I'm like, okay, here's what I need to talk about, emotional labor. And here's what I'm even speaking up more in my own life. So it is possible to be still, I own my power and my voice in all aspects, but there's always levels of where you can go back to where am I not being true to myself? And so it's an evolution. It doesn't just happen overnight, but something you tolerated 5 years ago, you may not be okay with at all right now, and you may not handle it, or you may be super clear. Like it could even be like, I learned something new, and then like 6 months from now, I'm like, you know what? I didn't know that piece of information, and now this is not okay for me now because of what I know. Right? And honoring that.
Totally. And I just think as women, I think we do not have, like, we don't own our power. It's just a natural, I don't know, I guess it's cultural, or maybe it's worldwide, I don't know, but we don't own our power. And it isn't, I find that too. I think in a relationship, that's part of the challenge of relationships, is finding yourself and being yourself in spite of somebody being right there who has different ideas or different desires or whatever. So it is an evolution, and I'm in it, I'm in it, I'm going through it, and it's never ending. And I will, again, speaking back to emotional eaters, that is the ultimate, I think, journey of the emotional eater. People focus on food and weight. It's so not about that. When we're not aligned with who we're meant to be, when we are squelching our voice, when we are holding back, when we are like misaligned with what our inner desires are and what our voice is, and we're just we're staying small, it's like there's disconnect, and there's also a lot of like self-hatred. Like I would be so mad at myself when I had something to say and I wouldn't say it, you know, when I would be living in fear and playing small. We know it. Like other people might not notice. We always know it. At some level, we know it when we're holding back. We know when we're letting fear take over and we're playing to that fear and we're not living courageously. And I know it affects my self-esteem, and it also can so affect, you know, my relationship with food, because, you know, when I am in disconnect enough, misalignment enough, you know, there's an inner disturbance that I will quell with food if I don't address it.
Yeah, and it's like everyone has different avenues of dealing with that uncomfortableness, right? If it doesn't get expressed, however it is for you, whether it's hiding out or food, you know, it's the same thing. And it's the same thing when I do when You Amplified. I think we were talking earlier about, yes, I'm a media and communication and speech coach. People come to me because they either want to be on TV or go on a media tour or do videos or do speeches. But that's just the end level. We start with that or we end with that. But levels 1 through 4 is knowing who you are, what are your boundaries, what do you stand for, what is your message, what do you really want to say, and how do you want to show up in the world? And that is what all of us need, right? It doesn't really matter if you're on a large stage. And I find that people come in for one thing because that's what their goal is at the moment, but all of it goes back to that core work, the inner work that can help you in all parts of your life. So, and I also want to share something about when you tackle that, it works for everyday life as well as people who are looking to be more visible. It's that when you aren't aligned with your purpose and who you are and what you stand for, it doesn't have to be this big purpose. Your purpose could be like, I want to be happy raising 2 kids at home, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this grand thing. My purpose is to build a nice family. My purpose is to take care of my parents, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be huge. But what happens is, you know, there's actually studies that done that when you know what you stand for, it gives you more confidence. And if you're in the workforce, you have more confidence, it equals more competence. And so it's all tied together of a process of self-awareness that goes deeper than just, oh, be confident. Oh, don't be fearful. It's really almost going inward and tearing everything apart and building it, right? Because one thing leads to the other. Taking a good look at who you are and what your boundaries are, what you stand for, what you want to say, and then being able to do it. And then once you do it, you gain more confidence, whether that's speaking on a stage or speaking up for yourself. You do it, you're like, oh, okay, I feel that. But knowing why you're doing it and then allowing you to do it, then that builds more confidence, which builds more confidence, which carries on in your personal and your professional life. So it's kind of a process, but it actually has shown that when you're clear on who you are, you can tell when people walk into a room and they're very aligned, right? And that's not something that's about speaking or about being, it's just when you're aligned, it shows up, right? But it is a process depending on where you're at.
Totally. You know, I love that. And I think I think a lot of people can use this information. And I think it's an important point that you made too, that like the end result, what we're going for the end result, it always like, I want to be a better speaker. I want to get media or whatever somebody's goal might be. It's always a personal journey. Like you have to go in, like you always have to go inward. Like when you want an outer effect, you still have to go inward. Somebody wants to lose weight, you still got to work on the inside stuff. So I love that message. It's so right on.
Well,
how does somebody, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, how does somebody get literally when they do, because I'm sure there's people listening who want to be more confident in their job, or they might have an opportunity to speak in their work. They're in a corporate environment or whatever, or they're a health coach and want to get out and speak more about their, you know, what they help people with. You know, how do you get over the nerves of that? And if that is a really terrifying experience for somebody, I mean, I know we talked about the inside work, but do you have some tips for people to just sort of start speaking up more and gaining that confidence?
Yeah. And the first thing is the energy thing that I talked about, because you will get that feeling when you're doing something new, right? Is that energy shifting that from I'm so nervous, I'm so anxious, dry mouth, whatever it is, to no, it's because I have something to say and I need to let it out, and I need that energy for it. The second thing is also sometimes if you are focused on a message, you're like, my message is more important than what I look like or this needs to be said, right? If you're in a business situation or you're a thought leader, you're like, sometimes your message is more important than the fear or the anxiousness or that I'm not ready. In your personal life, it's really about what can I add value at this moment? A lot of people don't feel like their words matter. And it doesn't really matter. It matters to you, right? And getting them out will allow you to do that. Maybe you start with something small. So it's kind of, if you're in your personal life, it may be scary, but you're like taking a look, it's like, how does that make me feel? What am I owning, right? So it's really about the more you do it, and you can think about, if you don't know what to say, you're like, what can I say in this moment that will add value, that will honor who I am, or make this feeling of not expressing myself go away? Without getting all kind of like, what am I going to say? How is it going to say? Just say it. You know, be clear on why you want to say it. But I think that doing that a few times gives you the comfort of like, you know what, I can do this. And so that's why I say, you know, I go through all the inner work. Some people may come and just do, you know, just like for you, if they want the dieting tips and the food recipes and whatever, that's really the training part, right? That's the things that's tactical, but the inner part is the work if you want to go deeper and actually have consistency with that, right? You can learn the dieting, like I can teach you how to be on camera, do the lighting, and, you know, 3 sound bites for your media interviews, how to get on TV. That's the training part. The inner work is, are you ready to do all that on a sustained basis, right?
Absolutely.
And that goes down to your personal life and doing that every day, right? Not just when you're on, just like for you with emotional eating, it's not just the diet for the 3 months, for the 2-month period that you're working with the person. It's how do you sustain it over your life?
Okay, Angela, this is amazing stuff. Thank you so much. I love it. And I know people are going to really resonate with this. And you are such a beautiful example of your gift that you offer, like really being out there in the world and you're such a generous, and like you've got a big heart and people feel that. I've always felt that from you, you know, so you're clearly living your purpose. You have an amazing gift to give people. It's a free gift that you're offering. Can you talk about that? And I'm going to put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, it's the You Amplified Performance Formula, and it's 7 steps to confidence, clarity, and connection. And it comes with a video. And yes, it's for people who are ready to step up on stage and make videos. But I think really it's about alignment. It's the 7 steps that I go through before I get on stage or before I have something big to say. And it's really about getting in alignment of what's your message, who is your audience, how are you feeling, what do you want to project. So I think it can help you in everyday life as well. And I try to have it where it's kind of the 7 steps that I go through, right? And I think it'll help you to be confident, clear, and connected. And that is my goal. It's like, yes, it's great. You want to be on stages and do different things. But in reality, I believe that people already have everything they need inside them. And to bring that out of people is amazing. And you don't have to be on big stages necessarily. It's like, how do you bring that out in your everyday life so that you match? I'm a big believer in that. You know, I want you to show up with your husband, with your kids, at a conference, on stage, on video, on TV, whatever it is, the same. You know, it doesn't mean you're going to be the same person every time, but you're not misaligned. And so that is really my goal, is that people to be clear, confident, and connected on camera and off.
Yeah, who doesn't want to be more clear, confident, and connected?
Yeah.
I want that. I'm going to watch that video. I need that. I need that, my friend. You know, the more connected we feel, I mean, the more confident we are. And obviously, I mean, the clarity comes from that as well. So yeah. I love it. Also, you do, I mean, I do have coaches and practitioners here who listen, and people in the corporate environment. So tell me, you actually, I know you don't do group programs, but you're doing something very special coming up. And for those who are tuning in right now, I want them to know about it.
Yeah, so what I usually work one-on-one VIP days with my clients, as well as large corporate accounts. So I train teams and different things for speech and media coaching, but I've been really called, like I said, in the last 2 years, something shifted, especially for women. So I'm bringing together a group of women, no more than 10. I don't do online group programs. It's not a large 3-day event. It's really about being my VIP client, but at half the cost. So it's taking people through the process of being You Amplified. Who are you? What do you stand for? How are you going to break through your barriers? What is your mastering your message, as well as the tactical things of like lighting and hair, makeup, but who do you want to show up as? And the inner work for 3-4 weeks, and then coming together in a one-day intimate luxury retreat, catered lunch, where you get to work with me and be in a supportive, warm environment of a small, intimate group of women. And I felt like that's what was needed, because there's so many large events, right, that we go to, or so many online programs that just sit in your box. And I was like, what can I give before the end of the year for people who are ready to step up, that allows them to be held accountable, to do all that pre-work? This is the same thing I give my VIP clients, except they have to do the pre-work alone, and then we come together and do whatever they want to do. This is starting in November 8th, and it's basically 3 calls, kind of guiding you through the process, and then we come together on December 6th for a one-day retreat here in San Diego. That is a mix of, yes, my You Amplified work, but all the feminine wisdom work that I've been doing. In the next few weeks, I'm going to a large women's leadership conferences. I'm going to a Tony Robbins relationship retreat. I'm doing some feminine wisdom work, and I hope to weave all that in, but really about owning your power and your voice.
That sounds amazing. So how, tell me how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, and I'm at angelachee.com, and I can also give you a special link for, the gift as well as for the retreat. But angelachee.com, and I'm at Angela Chee TV on Instagram, Twitter, as well as Facebook.
Angela, thank you so much. You are such a blessing. I'm so glad I know you, and I'm so glad that you came here to talk about your gift and all that you share with the world, because people, all of us, need to stand and, say what we have to say and stand in our light and our power, and you show people how to do that in such a beautiful way, and you are a beautiful example of that.
Thank you so much. And I truly do believe in that. I feel like all of us have something to say. It doesn't matter how big or small or whatever you think it is. It's really about owning your power and your voice. And it would make me so happy for people just to break through their barriers and to be able to do that in their everyday life.
Amen. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.